good evening and welcome to our virtual Wayland Library event. Tonight we're excited to have Cindi Jacobs, the mindful organizer, here to talk about organizing. For nearly 2 decades, Cindi has been transforming homes and gardens through her business, Simply Done. She helps clients create a vision for their dream space and turn it into a reality. Cindi is highly skilled at working with people who feel blocked by their clutter and unhappy with the chaos in their lives. She helps eliminate the overwhelm by breaking down the process through a proven methodology and creates results that deliver beautiful, organized, functional spaces. Cindi's lived in Wayland since 1997 with her husband and their 2 children. Thank you again to Cindi for coming tonight. I just have a couple of Zoom housekeeping notes. I'm just going to let in a couple more folks here. All right. First of all, we're recording this session for Waycam. So they may broadcast it on their channel, and if you're showing your video, you may see your face really small on the screen unless you hide your video. I will actually hide everyone but Cindi while she's giving the presentation part, but then we'll get to the question and answer. We may see more folks. So while she is giving her presentation with slides, I recommend you switch to speaker view. That way you should see her slides and her face right next to each other. And I'll put all this info into the chat if you need it. Feel free to add any questions to the Zoom chat at any time, and I'll make sure we get to them at some point. Or to message me, I'm Courtney, if you're having any technical trouble. And the last thing, if you didn't register through the library, we'd love to know who you are. So feel free to chat me your name and email so we can make sure that you are on our email lists. And I will also put my email in the chat. So now that I've got all that out of the way, we are ready to get started, and I'll hand it over to Cindi.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney. I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. And thank you to the Wayland Free Public Library for inviting me to do this presentation. Tonight's format will be a presentation with approximately 19 slides, take about 30 minutes with plenty of time for Q&A. My goals for this evening are to educate you with information, promote awareness, and provide inspiration and information on how to effectively begin the process of organization so that you can transform your home and feel better. Okay, not going forward. So the focus areas that we are going to talk about are 5. Why organize? What is the process to do it? And then I want to share with you some fresh ideas for the summer, ways to just kind of free up your space a little bit and have it be more summer ready. We're going to talk about garden organization. Yes, there is such a thing. And then summarize the points that we talked about. Okay. So one of the things I hear a lot is the fear of organizing. And people talk to me about feels very overwhelming and it's going to take too much time. I hear the words anxiety, pressure, and daunting. And why do it? Because it's just going to get cluttered up again. So I want to talk about why we save things and what the common myths are that are out there versus the reality. And this is not from specifics, statistics or studies. This is from my experience working with hundreds of clients. I'm in my 18th year of doing this, and these are some things that I hear from clients that I want to share with other people in case you're feeling the same way. So often I hear people save things because they think that their children may want it. And 90% of the time, they do not want it. Children today, or kids or young adults, are really living more in the IKEA mindset of furniture, things that aren't going to be sustainable for long term. They like to reuse and repurpose, but they want to have it be kind of trendy and buying it and not having to move it everywhere they go because they are more transient they stay in jobs less amount of time than when we were younger, or I'm lumping myself in with age, but when I was younger, people stayed in jobs for really long times, and kids today don't do that as much. Another thing that I hear is, I'm going to get it repaired. And what happens is these articles that you believe you're going to get repaired move from room to room, and then sometimes they end up in the attic or in the famous basement. And what I offer to you is to ask yourself when you're going to get that repaired. And if you strongly feel that you are, put it in your car, in the front seat of your car, and that will help you to see it and feel that you can get it done because it's right there in front of you. You'll make a plan, you'll put it there, and you'll get it done. I find a lot of old electronics that people want to save. I see lots of large speakers, old VCRs, stereos. And what's going on is that these products, while you think you may use them, the issue is that technology changes approximately every 6 months. So in order to use that old VCR or the tape players or cassettes, I've seen all of it, it takes so much more effort to get them to work with the technology that you have today. And so the amount of time and energy that you spend and money, it may not be worth it. So it's something to think about. The reality is you might just want to get something new. And then clothing. I hear a lot that you want to be able to wear the things that you had before because you don't fit in them anymore. It's a goal to get down to that size, and you think you may want to wear it again. So the first thing you want to do is ask yourself, how long ago did that dress or those pants fit? And then think about, if you do end up losing the weight or getting into that size again, would you rather maybe reward yourself with something new because styles change and trends change? And if you go through that process of losing the weight, maybe think about rewarding yourself with something new instead of having the dress sitting in that closet as a reminder of what you haven't been able to achieve. It's almost like looking at something as, you may not see it this way, but your mind is showing you that it might be a failure that I didn't get down to that size, that I wasn't able to do that. And instead, I'd like you to think about letting it go, or if and when you do lose that weight, reward yourself in another way. I'm not sure if that makes sense a little bit. So some actual statistics that are not mine, these come from studies. The first is really something to think about. We wear 20% of the clothes that we own 80% of the time. So a way to look at that, if you had a 3-foot closet, so 36 inches, approximately 7 inches of that closet is actually what you're wearing most of the time. And I think a lot of us gravitate to the same type of things. I know I have a tendency with business type things to either wear white or black or tan. And certain shirts, I just gravitate to the same things, and they go in the laundry, they come out of the laundry, and the other stuff doesn't get worn. So think about that amount of real estate that you're holding on to that could be used for other things. An average person spends 55 minutes a day looking for something, which equates to 2 weeks a year. And to think about what you could do with that time to enjoy life's pleasures rather than looking for that set of keys. If we don't have a place that it goes back to, you know, the saying of everything in its place, there's a reason for that, because you find yourself running around and looking through the same pile for something. And if that's the average person of 55 minutes a day, if you are one of those people that has more than that, think about how many more minutes. Or maybe you're not the average and maybe you're only spending 30 minutes a day, but still 30 minutes a day is quite a bit of time. This next one is interesting, and I'm just going to read it and not comment on it. IKEA did a survey of customers in which 31% reported they were more satisfied after clearing out their closets than they were after sex. No, you know, just, it is what it is. And the last one that I'll go over is just 80% of what we keep, we never use. And that is a high number. So if you look in your closets, when's the last time that you saw the back of that closet? Or in the basement when we put our shelves and we've got rows of stuff and stuff behind there and we never use it. Organization is not something you do just once. It's a way of life. A lot of, you know, another myth is I'll get everything all organized, it'll be all done, and then I'll never have to do it again. Well, that's not really reality. If you try to look not at the quantity of one's stuff, but at the quality of one's relationships in life, that's how you distinguish between quantity versus quality. And if you're making a decision or purchasing an item, we'll talk about setting goals. But what you want to sort of do is, before you purchase an article, maybe it's an article of clothing, maybe it's something that you were in a store and you really liked it. Two things that you can do. One is, sure, you really like it, but do you want that in your home? Do you need that? Does it serve a function? Ask yourself if purchasing this particular item will bring you closer to the goal that you want, or will it actually pull you farther away from the life that you desire? Buying an article of clothing and you're thinking about, you know, that I want to reduce my closet by 50%, and then I'm going to go out and buy another little black dress or another pair of jeans. Maybe you think about first inserting that question, will this bring me closer to my goal or take me farther away, before you buy it? So you don't have that regret also too. A lot of us purchase and then we return with regret. So what is the vision that you have for your life? And how do you start? The first thing that you do is set goals. And I'll talk about this also in organization. Setting goals is the key to the whole process. It breaks down into what's the vision for the space and what's the feeling that you want. And the feeling comes from the adjectives that you provide yourself. So for instance, if you feel right now in a space that it's not easy to work in, it's cluttered, it doesn't feel good, and you want to feel energized, or you want to feel calm, sophisticated. What are the things that are you? Because it isn't necessarily the organizer that you're working with or a family member if they're not going to be using that space. It's kind of, what do you want for that room? And then write those down, write those adjectives down, write those feelings down. And the functions that are going to serve in that room. In today's environments, we have been downsizing some of our homes, so you need more than one function in a particular room. We may have guest rooms that also serve as workout rooms, that also serve as a craft room. And knowing what those functions are, putting those down, setting the goals of what you want to achieve in there will help you to get there. And then finally, the layout. People don't always think about layout when they're thinking of organization and transformation, but it's really important because the size of the room and where the windows are and where the doors are and how you can get around the room relate to the layout. And in order to have a room that serves more than one function, if it's two or three, the layout's really important. So you want to think about, what can I do in this room? What do I want to do in this room? And that's how you start. before you just run right in and start going through stuff, really have the big umbrella, the overall picture first. So the next stage of that, once you have that, and the main crux of things is the clutter control, right? So it's broken down into 4 areas for me and with my clients. The first is PDS. I call it Purge, Donate, Save. It's the process whereby you go through each article and decide which of these 3 categories it's going to fall into. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Solutions. Solutions are systems that are set up to work for your lifestyle, not for mine, not for your mother's or your friends. Their solutions and their day-to-day lifestyle may be very different from yours. So the solutions deal with your day-to-day and how you do things so that you can set up things that function best for you. And then WIIFM, I'm sure you've heard that before. What's in it for me? We'll talk about what is in it for you when you go through this process and you have functional areas. And then finally, the maintenance, because as we said, organization's a way of life, not just something you do once. This slide has a lot of information on it, but it's all good information. Because as you're going through the PDS process and you're making 3 physical piles, the first thing you want to do is have a clear space to work in. So for instance, in a closet that you're doing, you may use the bed as part of the space, and you may use the floor as part of the space. And you want to separate out each of the things that you're going through the clutter into 3 categories. Now, I use 3. Sometimes you may have a couple extras. You may have a certain family member that you're putting things aside for. You may be having a yard sale, maybe not right now, but you may have a yard sale. Or so there could be another category, but these are the main ones. And some of the questions that you can ask yourself when you're thinking about whether to purge something or donate it or save it. Think about clothing. Have I used this or worn it in the last year? Now, a year to some people may feel like a short period of time or a long period of time. You can adjust this to be 2 years if you like. It really depends on when you're setting the goals and what you want to do. But if you haven't worn it, chances are you're not going to wear it. If it is your current size and you want to save it, but if it isn't, or if it doesn't work, or it has something, a zipper broken or a stain on it, determine whether or not you're going to get it fixed if it's broken. If it has a stain, can you get it out? And if not, then it's time to let that go. And then letting go may mean purging, but it also may mean donating. So if it isn't broken and it doesn't have a stain, there are so many places out there that really want those extra clothing or items.
Cindi, this is Courtney. One question did come up in the chat. Where can people donate these days? Who's open?
Correct. Right now, so Savers has 1 location or 2 or 3 locations. One's in, I think it's Rhode Island. There's one open in Nashua, but it's coming. Savers will open back up. You can still put things inside the charity bins. I'm not sure if they're picking up yet. The swaps will open back up and the consignments will open back up. Right now, it is pretty tough. But they will open back up, and I don't have the answers because each of them are doing it as their corporate headquarters either sees fit or as the governor decides when we can. So I would think phase 3, when the bars open up, is when this will probably happen as well. And there's one other thing I want to mention on here. There's these clothing swap parties, and I've done them before, and I don't know if you have, you know, groups of friends that might be interested in this. And I did one at my house with a couple other people, and you gave $10 into a bucket, and we did for a charity. And you came in with 2 articles of clothing, and you took 2 articles of clothing. And it was a lot of fun. And there were things that people donated with tags on them. There were people saying, "You sure you want to get rid of this?" And it was just a really fun night. And of course, we had wine and some jewelry, and we had an Arbonne rep there as well. So just all, good, healthy ideas. So if you scroll down a little bit, you see, do I have another item anywhere in my home that does the same thing? I've seen a lot of people with 3 and 4 of the same exact items. The only time that I think that some of those things are good is if it saves you time or makes your life easier. I'll use an example of a blender. If you've got a big blender and you also have one of those smaller blenders, but that works for you in the morning for your lifestyle to just take out that one little blender, then that makes sense to have a smaller one. I don't know what they're called, but they're these tiny little blenders that people use. So if there's things that you want, the little speakers that they're portable, and you want one up in your bedroom and you want one downstairs, well, then that makes absolute sense. But if you've got 3 or 4 things and you're saving them down in the basement and they all serve the same purpose, that's the time that you might want to let it go. So on the bottom right, I think of Marie Kondo, save the things that you love, that bring you joy, but that also bring you comfort. There's more words than just joy for me and, for the people that I work with, because a lot of times it just has a memory that brings you a feel-good feeling that isn't necessarily joy. So again, going back to your goals, when you're setting them, I want to save the things that bring me X. I want to have the things that make me feel Y. And then if they do, you go back to insert that question in your own things and when you go to buy new things. So talking about closet solutions, because a lot of people are dealing with overflowing closets, there are 3 different ways to look at closets when you're creating the solution. You can have a DIY closet. You can have a closet that's in between, whereas like if you see the closet made white wire shelving here in this picture, that's the middle. And then the third is a custom closet where a carpenter or Closets by Design or California Closets is going to build you a custom closet. That's the third kind. So here I'm going to talk just a little bit about simple closet solutions. I really like when people use crates or baskets and repurpose using something that they have so they don't have to go out and buy brand new things, especially in the first phase. What I teach is to not go out and buy a whole bunch of containers when you really haven't gone through your articles yet, because you don't really know how much you're going to save or what you're going to have. So it's best to do the process first. And then when you have the things that you have, you can determine what's the best size containers for that. Another thing with simple solutions is to do the add-on canvas holders that have Velcro and they actually go over a rod. You can use, they hold sweaters, they can hold larger purses, for instance, and they're really inexpensive. The other thing that doesn't get enough credit is the plastic clear shoe trees. They don't have to be just for shoes. We used them on the back of my kids' doors growing up for their sports so that they had the different socks that they needed for the different sports. Maybe they had shin guards in there. And then you can also use for gloves, mittens, scarves, because the see-through ones, you can literally know exactly what's missing or what you have. And it's a great, inexpensive way to contain things and still have them be organized. I recommend a seasonal wardrobe, which is a larger wardrobe that usually hooks right onto the rod to put a lot of your dressy type of items so that you're not looking at them all the time, but you still want to keep them in a relatively proper air type of environment. You don't want them going down into the basement where there could be mold, or, you know, it'll get kind of stuffy and kind of might get old. And where do you get all this stuff? I listed a bunch of places that the Container Store is probably a little more on the expensive side, and IKEA and Target are going to be on the inexpensive side. Keep in mind that the Container Store, though, even though you're paying a little bit more, they warranty their plastic containers. So if it breaks, you can bring it in and they'll give you a new one. It's a pretty good deal. So the WIIFM, here you'll see just a before and after of an entryway. And I think once you go through the process, what you get and what's in it for you is to quickly and easily find what you need. In this case, this particular person needed to get out of the door quickly, and she had 4 different part-time jobs, and she used a bag for each of those. So it was a grab and go. It's visually pleasing. It saves you time. And it does reduce stress and give you peace of mind, because what you're seeing here gives you a little bit of white space. And there's a lot of studies on white space. And what white space does, it doesn't necessarily mean white. It means blank areas, whether on the wall or on the floor, so that your mind can process more easily what's in the space. And how do you do maintenance? A couple different ways. Once you've gone through the process of the organization and the PDS and you have it, set a timer. Now, 15 or 30 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever works for you, but if you set that timer, you at least know that it has an end time. And so you going in and you're just putting things back where they go, and maybe they got a little out of control because you had a hectic week. And if you set the timer for 15 minutes, it allows you that amount of time to go in and sort of make it right, if you will, or make it back to the best version of itself that it can be for that time. Then there's a 1 in, 1 out rule. I use this a lot with clothing. If you buy something new for yourself, take something out. If you buy a new coffee cup, take one out. Don't put another one in there. If you do take it out and it's still in good shape, repurpose it. Maybe use it in a craft room. Have it hold makeup or paintbrushes or something else, even for your kids. The 1 in, 1 out is a good rule, because if we keep going 1 in, 1 in, 1 in, guess what? How many more we have again, right? If you keep an empty bag in your closet, that's a donate bag. When you try something on and you don't like how it fits, you don't like how it feels. How many of us say, oh, I don't like that, but then we hang it back up again? I am guilty of it, because I paid X amount for that dress, or I bought that, you know, when I was in my 30s and I want to wear that again. Well, every time I try it on, it doesn't make me feel good. That empty bag that's in my closet now has a purpose, because that dress or that shirt will go in there, and I'm not going to miss it. Don't forget to check your expirations in the closet that holds your medicines and things like that. That will help you to know, so when you go to get something, you actually can take it. And again, if it's broken, you no longer like it, let it go. So I wanted to give you some summer spruce up tips. And the first, we talked briefly about white space. So I'm going to give you a little exercise that relates to the first one. When you walk into a room, if you stand in the doorway of the room and your eye goes left to right naturally, if you look at the number of accessories in a room, that counts as a pitcher, a vase, books if they're scattered about, and you start to count from the left side of the room. And if you've got a bookcase that's got all different things, you start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You aren't halfway around the room and you're into the numbers like 15 or 16, then you've got a lot of articles in that room. What you can do, though, a trick, is to group like items. And then those 3 or 5 items become one because they're touching each other, and visually they become a grouping. So instead of having a vase, and a vase, you can take the 3 together and make them one. You can take a group of photos, 3 or 4 photos, and just have kind of go front to back and put them together. And so then they become a grouping. And then when you go around the room and count, you get a much lower number, and that allows you to have the white space freeing on the walls. So this picture here is to sort of just depict, yes, there's things here, but do you see how the pillow, one is behind the other pillow? And so that becomes a grouping. So those pillows, instead of counting 6 pillows, I'm counting 3 in my grouping. Even in the cabinet on the right, you'll see vases, and there's a picture of a woman and child ceramic, and then there's 2 ceramics below. When they're grouped together and behind it you can see white space, that cabinet does not look cluttered. So it's just a way of allowing your mind to be freer and more at peace. I'd offer you to look at, in the summertime, spring and summer is a great time to look at your window treatments. What is up? What curtains are up? How old are they? How long have they been up there? And if you can, and privacy is not an issue, remove the window treatment altogether. In this window seat, there used to be a valance. And the choice was to remove the valance because it's a living room that looks out to some landscaping, and it really doesn't need the privacy. So I would offer up to remove and have nothing if you can, or simplify it. And then a little trick that I use a lot is when you're doing centerpieces of flowers, you can use greens from your yard. You can use some hydrangea. I actually give a lot to friends. I have a lot of them, so I cut them. I bring them over to my neighbors. And they're just a beautiful, easy way to have something pretty on your table. And my suggestion would also be to stick to shades of the same color, or just use a couple of colors. When you go to the store, you ever notice that they give you the bouquets that are the least expensive are the ones that have got every color in the rainbow? And there's a reason for that, because those are leftovers from different things. And so they bunch them all together and they sell them for $5.99. Instead, get the bunch that's $3.99 and $3.99, and they're 2 different shades of purple, and you put them together and cut some greens from your yard, and you have a stunning piece. Move more pillows out, pillows and throws and extra blankets. Roll them up, put them in a basket to the side, reduce the number of pillows, and it really makes things feel less cluttered, less thick and heavy. You want, in the summer, in the spring, you want it to feel lighter, cleaner, newer.
Cindi, before you leave this slide, there was one question. Is there a good number of items to have in a room, like a guideline?
No, there is not. I wish I could say there was. I think for accessories, rather than focus on the number that's in the room, focus on the amount of white space that you have. Not every wall needs to have a picture on it. And if you do have a lot of pictures and that's something you enjoy, take that wall that has 1 and another one has 1, another one has 1. See if you can group them Use the 3 of them on one wall so that another wall has nothing, so that your eye has somewhere to rest. Another thought is that there is a little bit of a rule about how much furniture to have in a room, and especially heavy furniture. Americans in general have a lot of pieces of furniture in their room. I don't know why. Europeans have less. We tend to buy another piece of furniture because it's going to hold some more stuff for us, rather than going through the stuff and reducing the furniture to, again, think about the white space and free space in your room to feel lighter. Whoever asked that, that's a really good question. And does that answer make sense? Good.
Yes.
All right. Some more ways to refresh. Simple thing to do is paint your baseboards and your trim. This is a DIY thing. We get little scratches and bumping the vacuum or a piece of furniture or something, and you can either just touch them up or just paint them up, and it's a simple way to make the room feel lighter, cleaner, because even when you clean, if there's all these scratches and bumps on it, it never feels completely clean. And so a fresh coat of paint on your trimmer and your baseboards is a great way. These pictures are actually in my home. This is my home. The top right picture was my kitchen cabinets, which were a natural birch. And below, we had to have a column repaired. So the column is new, but the cabinets are all just painted. And the glass front, I took one of the cabinets, had it cut out, and I went to the store and got a piece of glass from Town Line Hardware for $5. Had that put on, bought the clips from Amazon, clipped the clips on, and I got, in the newer kitchens, they all have all these glass cabinets, and I literally did that for, I don't know, maybe, so that was $5 clip, $20. So, the granite's the same, the backsplash is the same. Friends that are over my house all the time came over and said, "Did you get new granite? Did you get a new backsplash?" I'm like, no, just paint. Same thing with the curio cabinet, just paint. Another thing, I didn't go over it on that, was replace your lighting or update your lighting. Maybe you get a new light fixture. Think about the lighting that's in your home. If you've got some of those big heavy domes, and you might just want to pare down and get smaller pendants, or maybe you just want to do some recess lighting because it's only got the one light in the middle of the whole room. That's a way to do an upgrade without breaking the bank and doing a whole thing. Paint, lighting, and replacing your hardware. I used to have dark red wood hardware on the cabinets, and now I have just the traditional silver. Now everyone's moving to gold. I'm actually thinking about doing my sink a gold faucet and gold knobs, because that won't be that expensive. So, cool garden organization. And the same thing you want to think about in your interior, think about with your exterior. And what do I mean by that? Well, the first thing you want to do is look at where the area that you want to spend more time in is a great way to just start. Maybe it's just outside a patio, maybe it's a deck, and set the goals for what you want. Same thing, first set the goals. What's the feeling that you desire in your outdoor space? And maybe that it's you want other people to feel really warm and excited to come over and hang out with you, or maybe you just want a place to sit and read, or suntan, or write. It's your space, so think about how you want to feel in it. And then write down those adjectives again. What's the design you're looking for? Are you a formal person that you want to have kind of everything the same? Or are you more an English garden person? and you want to have things kind of mixed in. Think about the design before you go ahead and go out and buy a bunch of plants, right? Plant properly. Get new soil. Think about the amount of sun or shade in the space, so that you may love hydrangeas, but you can't, they really don't do as well in a beating heat right next to the driveway. So they may not be the best plant for going right there. Or you love hosta, but you've got tons of sun, or vice versa. Read the label on the plant, and they really are putting the label on the plant so that it will thrive, right? And maintaining them. So on the right, let me just slide my screen over here. You can see, can you see that now? So on the top right is the befores of a garden that it was in the fall that just needed to be weeded, pruned, and to be ready for the next season. So it needed some splitting and some moving. And so the top pictures, it really doesn't look like it's a garden that's cared for. It looks sort of like a lot of weeds and a lot of going on, but it needs to have air and breathing. So you want to take that time to maintain it, and fall is a great time to think about what worked, what didn't work, what can I move, what do I want? And this picture, I showed this, I mean, you know, it's not a glamorous picture, but it's a real picture. So here's a space in a garden that went from chaos to calm. And it went that way in steps. And the first on the top left, she had a vision that she wanted it to be more like, there's another area in her house that has these river rocks, and she wanted it to more tie into the pool area. And so her vision was to have it be a little more eclectic and not just mulch and not just looking overgrown. So the next step was to organize, weed, and prune, which is what you do first before you add any plants in. Rather than going and adding more plants for color, we looked at this to kind of get it back to bare bones first, and then you look at planting and designing and how you wanted to do it. Here's some before and afters. One on the left is a backyard, and it had just gotten with lots of weeds, and they sat in the way back of this house and just wanted it to be not necessarily magazine worthy, but enjoyable and outdoorsy and keeping with nature. Literally were the words. The one on the top right, the bed had been neglected and plants had died, and what it really just needed was somebody paying attention to it. And the same for the bottom. Flowers and shrubs need to be pruned and managed and taken care of, or else they will just keep growing. That's what they do. So in summary, what I'd like to go over is just what we talked about: setting a goal and making a plan, whether it's interior or exterior. Your dream spaces can become reality by working through your plan and listening to what you started out with and inserting those questions before you do anything. And if you focus on the quality of one's life rather than the quality of one's stuff, it'll be so much easier. Less really is more. Buying more things and more things to make ourselves feel better and to think that we really wanted that when we really haven't gone through our stuff first. That step is so necessary. So continue to focus on the quality of your life rather than your stuff. And freeing your mind from the clutter, I hope with the education and the awareness portion in the beginning, shows that it can reduce your stress and it can reduce the clutter, and it allows all those new opportunities to flow into, whether it's, flow into your brain or something different that you want to do or that you want to accomplish. That weight of the things and the items that are holding you down will free up in your mind. An organized home really does provide a healthier lifestyle. And each and every one of you for taking the time to coming out and hearing this and thinking about what you're doing makes me feel that you all deserve it. And we all deserve a healthier lifestyle. And that's what I would like for all of you. And I'd like to open it up for Q&A or anything else you want to talk about.
Thank you so much, Cindi. Anyone who wants to jump in, feel free to unmute. I did have one more question from the chat, which I think I probably should have interrupted you earlier when you were talking about sparking joy versus comfort. Someone asked, what about things like memorabilia that you're never going to use, like pictures or things your kids made, stuff that takes up room, but it's really hard to get rid of it?
It is. So the first thing that I say is to go back to the original part where you're setting your goal. And so if your goal is partly to reduce the amount of stuff, maybe you set a percentage to that. I want to reduce the stuff in my basement by 50%, or I want to reduce by 30%, so that you have that goal. That's the first thing. And then with the artwork and the things like that, if you have a container for each kid and you've got, say, a stack, I don't know, 6 feet high, and you have this container that's got, say, 5 inches by the size that kind of could fit under your bed, 5 inches by maybe almost 3 feet. Look at that and go through the articles of the art, because a lot of times you've saved it all, but you really haven't looked at it in a really long time. And you will start to see a pattern of what are the things that you really like, that you want to save for you, and get them involved in it, depending on the age, that they learn how to go through the things. And they may say they love this, or I did that 3 years ago. I was in elementary school. I'm now in middle school. Like, I don't want that. But you may want a couple of them. And so save the best ones. That's one way. Another way is you have the artwork, and this is a great thing to do if your kids are still young. And I created what was an artwork board. It was a big cork board in my kitchen. And every time they came home with their art, it went up on the board in a pit, and they knew, they learned. My 100 went up there, my art went up there, and it stayed up there for probably at least maybe up to a month. Depends on how good I was at it. Anywhere from a week to a month. And then before those articles came down, you have the child stand in front of the art and you take a picture. There's all the art from that time, and now it's in a picture. And it makes them get in the habit too, to learn how to let go, and that there's my picture, and you're seeing them grow with the art, and it's just a nice way to do it. As far as the pictures and things like that, so a lot of things now are online. So if you have older pictures, there's one thing about scanning them and getting a program and putting them in. The other is to take the top pictures, the favorite pictures from the year, and you can create a book with Shutterfly. You can create it with, I think it's chat books. There's a bunch of different ones. And get that once you sign on and sign up, they'll send you coupons. So don't get your book in there and they'll say, oh, you haven't finished your book. And they'll start sending you coupons. Wait for those. And just give yourself a goal. I make one book every year because I just want to take the best memories, and I can't keep all of those pictures. I can keep them online till my hard drive, goes. But I hope that answers the question, give you some ideas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question which you and I chatted about earlier, talking about getting buy-in from your family. So we had talked about my kids, but I'm also wondering about your peers, your husband, or your other folks in your house. How do you get buy-in?
So I guess it depends on buy-in on what particularly the topic is. So if it's, for instance, clothing, if you start with them at a young age, when the articles of clothing don't fit anymore, you teach them also about taking the clothing and donating it, and have them go with you. Or if they have a cousin or a neighbor, we have a neighbor down the street that we always donated the clothes to because they had two younger twin boys that were 4 years younger than my son. So he got in the habit, oh, these are going to go to the boys. And so as soon as something didn't fit them, it went right into a bag. And so he would leave them, literally, he'll be 22 on Monday, and he will put clothes at the top of the stairs, and I know that those are the clothes that don't fit him anymore. So I have a niece that has a little more trouble with that, with giving away, especially her stuffed animals. So stuffed animals, the ones that you play with, if you get a container that's specifically just for those, because they can end up all over the room, all over the bed. So depending on the age, I used to use the firemen can't get to you. If the stuffed animals are all over the floor, they could trip and fall. So that became the first part, believe it or not, and it worked. And then big containers to help with cleanup. So buy-in for cleanup, if they have a place to put it, they will learn. They may not do it the way exactly you want. We talked about this. I have a boy and a girl. My son would tend to throw things into the container, and my daughter was a person who placed. So learning what works for them and having a space to put it, that's the buy-in. My husband, we had some things that are easier than other things, but having a place for things allowed him that. What I found with him is that he likes to have a chair that he can put some of his stuff on. And our deal kind of is, after a few days, that chair the stuff all gets picked up and put away. Or before if it gets bad enough, before the cleaner comes, he has to come and put it all away. So you make decisions together on what works best. So it's kind of like an open dialogue, if you will. What would work? This isn't working for me. What would work for you? And then you come up with it together rather than saying, I need you to put that away immediately. Well, I have one child with ADD and my son's ADHD. So things for my ADD daughter, I can't give her a whole list. And I have clients with ADD and ADHD. And so you have to sort of work within the process and what the goal is. And so if it's cleaning out this bookcase and I want to reduce the number of books because I read one book a month, which is 12 books a year, well, guess what? You've got 250 books here. Are you really going to read all of those? So the goal has to match, right?
Yeah. Match the person.
Yeah, match the person, yeah.
Anyone else should feel free to jump in. Sorry, it sounded like someone did.
They might be on mute if you want to.
Let's see. I have a question. I posted it in the chat room. I'm Susie Klein. What about photos? So just to give you an example, I have all, my photos since in my nuclear family with our kids that are, albums, boxes, disorganized. And then a few years back, I cleared out my mother's house in California and threw away 90% of the photos and gave them to my brothers, split them up. But I kept, the top 100 that are really 200 photos, and then I had them digitized. So that was good to share with my brothers and kids, but they're sitting in a box right over there. And it's like, they feel like they're sort of sacred and I can't do anything with them. Plus, I have other boxes of all my childhood photos.
So we were of the generation that we had these photo albums and we kept all of them, and some of them weren't even the right acid kind of stuff, so they get yellowed and older. You did a great thing by digitizing them. And now you have them that way. If you feel that is it the physical, tangible piece that you don't want to let go of, partly?
Well, some of them were like, formal portraits of my grandparents that, from the turn of the last century. Those I can't throw away, obviously.
Right.
But like, there are all the little, pictures from the 1970s, with my siblings that have a lot of emotional import. But they're just crummy little photos.
Right. So there's a couple different things. I mean, you can put a grouping of those and scan them as a mini collage.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have collages from certain parts of the family, or you could make a collage or a couple of collages, and then they're done and they're put away. And so you can hold on to those, you know what I mean, rather than having the boxes and boxes.
Mm-hmm.
If you've digitized a lot of them, the other thing I would recommend is doing a book with them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, because it can be time consuming to make the book, but there are also services that will make the book for you, even on Shutterfly, and it's not that expensive at all. So you download them in from your files,
Mm-hmm.
and there's even a button if you don't care about the order and they don't have to be chronological, which maybe letting that go, because if the goal is really to get them in a book and keep them nice so that you can let them go of the bigger copies that they are, or the actual physical ones, and you put them into some sort of a book. But it does take time. The other thing is thinking about what you want to leave to the people when you're gone. What do you want to leave behind? And do you want to leave them with all of these that they have to go through them, lots and lots of pictures? Or do you want to leave them with the most important ones? And so you have some of those, maybe there's a percentage of those, and then you still make the books. You've got to really sort of decide what is the goal of having them, where do you want to see them go to, who do you think they're going to go to, who in your family maybe is into the genealogy piece of it, or maybe really cares about those things, and have a conversation with them of what would they like from that. Mm-hmm. So that you're looking more to the future of where they're going to go. Those are some ideas. It can be I'm not going to say it's not a difficult task. I have been going through it. I made some manila folders with the actual pictures, and I did one for each person in my family of the manila envelope of the photos that I just couldn't bear to just throw away, but I didn't need them anymore. And so they each got a manila envelope, and some people got two of a stack. And then it's up to that person to decide what to do with them. But the collages are good ideas, getting them scanned. There are services that will scan for you. So it's deciding what the goal is for you, what you want. And if you're not ready to let them go, preserve them in a clear storage container and move them aside. Write a date on it. Write a date in your calendar from a year from now and look at it again. I mean, it's a way to think about it, to let it go now. If it's on your shoulders and you've got other things, when am I going to look at that again? And where will I be at that stage? You might feel differently, right?
Yeah. We have one more question. how do you approach organizing paperwork, junk mail, print materials? That's my problem also.
That's a good one. So setting up systems so there's two parts to that. Setting up systems in advance and a filing system. Go through what you have first in your file cabinet so that you don't have all the stuff that you don't need anymore, the policies that you don't have anymore. And there are, I have a method that I use, but you can find them online so that it's streamlined for, the medical, the personal, the investments, and then in each of those you have a folder. So you can use the Pendaflex file folder and then folders inside that. And then once you have gone through what you have, when you get your mail and it comes in, do your mail next to the recycle bin. Do not bring it upstairs. Do not go somewhere else with it, because immediately you can determine what needs to go to be burned or needs to be whited out, that's got personal information on it, but that doesn't need to be saved, right? And then you've got left what needs to be saved, and then you want to put that into, and this gets into a whole thing, but depending on what you work with and in your office, I use billing, active, and projects. Some other people also have to read. I tend to just go through that quickly, like what they need to read or what they need. And some people also have file. I just put it right on top of my filing cabinet and do it immediately. But do it over a trash can, touch it once. And what I mean by once is that's okay if once it goes into billing or active or a project. That's okay because you're putting into somewhere. Make a determination where it goes based on what you need to do with it. Be near the recycle bin and don't be afraid to let it go. And if you want to be even better, you can call the catalogs to get them to stop sending you this stuff because it's just a waste.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We might have time for one more question. Does anybody have something new? Special challenges?
I can ask, did anybody, do you feel like you got something out of this that you are either inspired or that you could effectively begin to do something within your own home? Did you feel like you learned something tonight? Anyone?
There's lots of people in the chat saying thank you and great, great presentation. Someone just said to set the timer. That's one thing that they learned. And someone else is going to take down their curtains.
Good, very good. Well, my information.
Yes, I'll put that in there right now.
Put that in the chat. And, if you want to call me, I will do, a free 15 or 20-minute consult on the phone with you. That's fine. I've been doing a lot of that during this pandemic. And I'd be more than happy to do that as well. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, I'm Simply Done Cindi. On LinkedIn, it's Cindi Jacobs, Simply Done. So I'm on all the social media. Instagram's got some great before and afters, and yeah. But so I appreciate everyone's time. This was really good. I'm glad we had a wonderful attendance, and I appreciate your questions. And absolutely, I wish you all the best in feeling better at home with everything that's going on and doing your projects.
Thank you so much, Cindi.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Wayland Public Library.
Have a good night, everyone.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.